How's it going out there, YouTube? My name is Jesse, and I am the curator for the Golden Age, and this is another...
Lost Heroes of the... Hey, wait a minute now.
Okay, hear me out.
Your obscurity obsession is getting out of hand.
Okay, listen. Now, look, I know I was going to do some more quality characters, but this just recently came across my desk, and I decided that this was interesting enough that I wanted to review it.
Okay, go ahead with your justification.
Because two of the names that are attached to this were big names, especially at this time of the comic book country. Bill Woolfolk and Mort Levy. Now, they're not as big as some of the names like Jack Kirby and Stan Lee, but these are two big names in the comic book industry at that time. Bill Woolfolk worked with many different companies, DC, Timely, Quality, Fawcett. He worked with a lot of these companies, so he was all over the pages of the Golden Age. And Mort Levy not only did a lot of artistry in the late 1940s when he was in the military, because a lot of comic book artists got drafted, he did a lot of military comic books. So, both of these names are big names, and we'll go a little bit over both of them when we do this intro. The Mad Hatter had the unfortunateness of coming out in 1946. Was that 1946? Yeah. And it's unfortunate because the artwork isn't bad. The stories are actually pretty good. And I think that if this had come out maybe 3 or 4 years earlier, that this could have been more popular. But this was just after the war, and comic book superheroes were on their way out, and things like Westerns were on their way in. And then monsters would dominate the 50s before we would get back to superheroes. So this has a lot of elements of superheroes at the time. The full costume, the mask, cape. He even had he not only had an emblem, but he would show his insignia on the wall in some instances, so you would know he was there. So there's a lot of other elements of other superheroes that were all put together to become this one. Now, the paging number for the stories was incredibly inconsistent. 2 stories were 11 pages, one was 13 pages, another was 15 pages, and there was one story that was only 2 pages. And I'm going to go over his first appearance, and I'm actually going to go over the 2-page story because it's just silly enough that I have to show it. Unfortunately, there is only 2 issues. There are 5 stories. We're even going to count the 2-pager as one of the 5 stories. But I honestly think that with the name attached to it, the story and the artwork, that this really could have been a popular feature if it had just come out a few years sooner. So let's go over and cover the Mad Hatter on this Lost Heroes of the Golden Age. The Mad Hatter. Mad Hatter, Grant Richmond, first appeared in Mad Hatter number 1 in 1946. The original publisher is OW Comics Corporation, and it was created by Bill Woolfolk and John Gerald Oxton Sr. Now, I'm wondering about that. Now, the reason it's called OW Comics is they're using Oxton and Woolfolk. They're the two behind the publishing of the company. But I don't see John Gerald Oxton anywhere on the story pages. If you look at the Mad Hatter number 2, where there are 3 stories, it does say that it was created by Bill Woolfolk and Mort Levy. So, I mean, I'm at a loss for that, but it is named OW, so it would be Woolfolk and Oxton. But I just find that interesting because Oxton's name isn't anywhere in the stories. There's 5 stories 2 of the 5 have the buy names on them, and it says Woodfolk and Levy. So I don't know. I mean, maybe he's just one of the publishers, but I don't believe he was directly behind the creation. Now, the Mad Hatter, I think that they did some publishing problems with the first one, because on the very first cover of the Mad Hatter, it shows him fighting this gorilla, and it says, "A new kind of comic book, Mad Hatter, and this issue, the strange tale of a man who returned from the dead as a gorilla." Now, that story is in the second issue, and it's actually the second story of the second issue. It's not the first story. And I'm wondering if that was supposed to be the first story of the first issue anyways, for how he's introduced in this one, because on that story where they show the gorilla, here's the lead into it. "No one would suspect Brant Richmond of being anything but a bright young man with a promising future in the law offices of Fuddy and Bustle. But the dark byways of the plunder world know him as the Mad Hatter, swift agent of justice, relentless enemy of crime." Now, that would have been a good lead-in for the very first story, but it's not the very first story. It's the second story of the second issue. But on the cover of the second issue, it says that the Mad Hatter versus Humpty Dumpty. And the very last story, which is the third story, is the Mad Hatter does fight Humpty Dumpty. It also says the Mad Hatter visits the Golden City of Crime, which I think that they're trying to say the Golden City of El Dorado. But in this issue, yeah, he does go to the Golden City, and he does fight the Mad Hatter. So this is the cover of of that issue. So I think that the second story where he fought the gorilla should have been in the first issue. And here on the cover, it has Matt Levy by the foot of the Mad Hatter. So maybe it was just a cover thing. I mean, I know a lot of times that cover artists are also given the credits. The Mad Hatter is interesting. In the very first story that they publish, which I don't think is supposed to be the first story, but that's the one we're going to cover, he rhymes while fighting the bad guys. And when I looked up his biography, they mentioned that he rhymes when he fights the bad guys. He only does it in the one issue. So there is one story out of 5 where he's rhyming while fighting the bad guys. Now, he wears, his costume is almost completely purple. The gloves, the trunks, and the boots and the cape are all white. So you got the white cape, the white boots, the white gloves, the white trunks, and the white gloves. He wears a red domino mask, and that's it. He has a chest emblem, which is a top hat. Why this guy is called the Mad Hatter, I have no idea. There is nothing. I mean, maybe it's because he's rhyming at first, and that was something that the Mad Hatter was known for, but it doesn't make any sense. Neither him nor his civilian identity wears hats. Any kind of hats. There's no Bollanders, there's no news hats, there's no visors, there's no top hats, there's no hats at all. Yet somehow he wears a hat. He also portrays a hat emblem when he's about to strike. Think Blue Beetle. There's a lot of Golden Age elements in the story. It's like they put a lot of other stuff that you would have seen in the Golden Age and patented into this one hero. Also, think Batman. Well, no, Batman didn't show his emblem right before he attacked. That was more of a Blue Beetle. And I think the Hangman might have done that too. Now, Bill Woolfolk was in a lot of publications in the Golden Age. In the Golden Age, he was one of the highest paid comic book writers at the time. I think that they said he was earning $300 a week, which was unheard of for comic book artists back then. And he wrote for several different companies. He wrote for DC, which I do believe was National Periodicals, doing stuff for Batman and Superman. He wrote for Fawcett Comic Books, doing things like Bullet Man and Captain Marvel. Quality Comics, Black Hawk and Plastic Man. He worked in Timely Comic Books with things like Captain America and Submariner. And he also did some work for MLJ Comic Books. National and Orbit Publications. I don't think I've done anything for Orbit Publications. Now, he did serve in the Army in World War II, and he would eventually join Shock Illustrated, which was I believe it was a magazine that was founded by astronauts. So, I mean, that's a lot of the stuff that he did in the Golden Age, along with becoming part of OW and creating the Mad Hatter. And I believe that if this thing hadn't come out in 1946, it would have been more popular. The writing is not horrible. The drawing is actually very good, reminiscent of what you would see in early Golden Age. So this thing was actually not a horribly written comic or a horribly written thing. It's completely obscure. I mean, this had to fall across my desk for me to even find it. But I don't hate it. I actually think it's really good. And if this had come out in 42, 43, I'd probably be reviewing a whole line of Mad Hatter comic books, because I believe that this thing would have been popular enough to keep going. But unfortunately, we only got the 2 issues, because around this time, people were waning away from the superheroes. We're getting more towards the cowboys, which would dominate the late 40s and early 50s before going to monsters to back to superheroes again. But I think that if they brought this back today, there might be a subset of popularity around it. I mean, they could put this guy into Marvel or DC, and I think that he would slot in just fine. Or any of the other comic companies that are starting to publish up again. This would not be a bad thing to slot into them. So, Mort Levy, I just found his name on one of the covers and 2 of the issues. Now, Mort Levy, he did actually work at Jerry Iger Studios, who did a lot of stories for a number of different publications. He also jumped around to a couple of other ones, like Fiction House and Jumbo Comic Books. Well, Fiction House, Jumbo Comics. I think I might have covered... I know I definitely want to get into those. Doing some stuff for MLJ, like The Hangman and Quality Comics. He went to Timely Comics and did some stuff for Captain America. Did a little work with the Destroyer. So he's jumped around with a lot of different publications as well. So, I mean, I'm recently learning about these names. I don't think that they're Golden Age royalty as some of the other names that I know, but definitely not people that should be overlooked for Golden Age artists. I'm actually surprised with the almost 200 characters, well, with Spotlights and the Lost Heroes. I've done over 200 characters. I'm surprised that I haven't covered more of their work, considering that they've done many different publications. And I may have covered stuff that they were a part of, but didn't actually outright create. So chances are I've stumbled upon their work and just didn't realize it because they weren't given any creative credits. Just, part of, but not directly in relation to. He also did some work with Lev Gleason, which I've covered a number of things like that, and Orbit Publications. So there's many things that these guys have been a part of, which, it's opened up the door for new things for me. But yeah, he was even working on stuff as far into the 1970s, along with Swamp Thing and Man Thing. Those who know fear, no Man Thing. Anyways. Yeah, Man Thing was definitely Marvel. But yeah, these two guys, so yeah, definitely not names to overlook. So let's go ahead and cover the first issue that they put out as the Mad Hatter, even though I don't believe it was supposed to be the first story. I mean, none of these are actually a true origin story. He's just established in any one of them. So, but let's go ahead and cover the first one that was published. And the weird thing about the stories is the length of the 5 stories. In the Mad Hatter, the first story is 11, the second story is 2, and second comic, the first story is 15, second story is 13, and the third story in the second issue was 11. But it feels like that one was done by, I know it's Mort Levy, but it didn't feel the same way. Now, I know in that time a lot of joke comic books were coming out. There seemed to be a little more levity in his last story where he went up against Humpty Dumpty. So, I know who it's signed by, but maybe I'm just reading too much into it because it was the last story, but it doesn't feel like a rush job, but it almost feels like something different. Anyways, let's go ahead and cover the first story, and then I'll show you the second story because there's 2 things I want to point out with that one. Mad Hatter, Daily Clarion, girl reporter dates Mad Hatter, crime boss exposed. Reporters get so many strange assignments, few complain because they know how often an innocent lead has uncovered the year's biggest stories, but never was there a stranger assignment or more unexpected endings than in the case of Barbara Blake, whose editor ordered her to get a date with the Mad Hatter. I don't like how they broke, often, biggest, stranger assignment. I mean, you could have wrote that in there better, so you didn't have to break up so many words. I mean, look, there was still even space at the bottom, so you could have spaced that out so you didn't have to break up so many words. I had difficulty reading this the first couple times because there was so many breakup words. It was unnecessary, is what I'm saying. When you pay a call to your best girl, you don't expect to find her like this. That man, I could kill him. Are you talking about me? Now, he's holding flowers in his hands, which I didn't get the first time because it doesn't look very obvious. I'm talking about my editor, Jim Murray. He's the most stubborn, unreasonable, pig-headed. I've never heard a girl talk so violently about a man unless she likes him. That statement sounded a little sexist. I'm going to let it go. I'm crazy about him. I'd never worked for anyone else, but he does give me the queerest jobs. Now, just a second ago, he just said, when you pay a call on your best gal, and then in the next story, she says, I'm crazy about him. That's not something you want to hear. Okay, so she talks about how she's angry because her assignment is to date the Mad Hatter. And she says something came over the wire and she'd rather deal with that. Sorry, Grant, our date is off. I've got to show this to Jim Murray. Jilted again. Our date is off. I'm crazy about him, the editor. Dude, I don't have a lot of faith in your relationship. Okay, so he goes to talk to the editor, and he's like, oh, you've already got the identity of the Mad Hatter? Better than that. A letter from Hunky Henders. He says he'll tell me the name of the real boss of crime in the city. And she goes to light a cigarette, and he lights up a match for her, saying, That 10-cent gadget never will work. Cigarette lighter. You could have said it was a cigarette lighter. A 10-cent gadget. I mean, cigarette lighters were out in the 20s, dude. It's not like that's anything new. Okay, so she says that he's trying to say that he's a low-level guy, and he's like, well, he owes me a favor, so I'm going to take this letter and go see him. Besides, your job is to date the Mad Hatter. Not anymore. I've assigned myself. I know that reporters sometimes get assignments, but I also think that they can choose new assignments if they find a better story. I don't want you to get in trouble, Babs. I couldn't afford to lose you. Don't try to soft soap me, Jim Murray. I'm still going to see Hunky Henders. Eat it. It's actually, he's called Hunky. It looks like they both have feelings for her. Look at him. Look how close they are. Okay, so as she's walking out, he sees the vehicle. Here's Barbara now. Say, that car is edging up towards her. Rocky Grimes is at the wheel. This means action for the Mad Hatter. So they run out and they grab her, and then the Mad Hatter, isn't it a shame? I've shown up to spoil your game, and this is the only time he will do this. Now, please, now that you know, please don't go. I'm really not so bad as I've painted. By all means, let's get better acquainted. Yeah, in the other stories, he uses a lot of one-liners and stuff that you would naturally see in the Golden Age, but I kind of like the idea of rhyming like the Birthday Bandit did, but he doesn't keep it up. So, he gets blackjacked by this guy, and they take off. He gets knocked out more than once in this story. I mean, he's really bad at staying conscious. I think by the time he's in his 40s, he's going to have some serious brain trauma. Okay, what can I say that would... she's like, Hatter, speak to me. What can I say that would compare to your beauty? Oh, you're all right. I am not going to approve of this sentence, but I am going to say it. That's female egotism for you. If a man says you're beautiful, that means he's perfectly okay. I don't condone that sentence, but that is what is written. Okay. She says the letter is gone, so they took the letter. They've stolen the only evidence I had. They're gunning for Henders next unless we get there first. So they both take off to go find Henders. And this guy in the black mask. Hey, it's Black Mask. He says, I know that you're trying to squeal on me. Oh, I wouldn't do that. All of a sudden, it gets dark, and then there's the Mad Hatter symbol. I still don't know why you have to be called the Mad Hatter. Okay. He goes in, and he starts taking out bad guys, dodging bullets. What's so soft as a feather's bed? Now let me think. I know it's your head. At times like this, he makes jokes. Works for Spider-Man. Okay, he sees Barbara, and it gets him distracted. And okay, keep in mind, he's got a gun in his hand. So the Mad Hatter gets pistol whipped and knocked unconscious. Now, why don't you look at him? See, this is what I don't get. You knocked him out. You're hanging him out the window. Why did you not take off his mask? Okay, I'm going to do the spoiler thing. The guy in the mask, the black mask right there, is the editor who wants to know who the Mad Hatter is. He has the Mad Hatter unconscious. Why did you want to know his secret identity? He's right there unconscious. Why did you not take off the mask? I know it's a spoiler. They're going to be revealing it in just a few pages that he is the editor. You have the Mad Hatter there. He is unconscious. You should have taken off his mask to find out who it is, because that was your motivation of having your star reporter date the Mad Hatter in the first place. I know. I'm getting hot about this, but it's right there. Your whole story falls apart with the very guy who wants to know his identity has the ability to unmask the unconscious man. Oh, it's going to spoil the reveal. Spoil the reveal? It doesn't make any sense when you have him unconscious. Okay, so they tie him up with bed sheets as a noose, and he's hanging out there, and they talk about fasten the other end of the steam pipe, let's go. If anybody sees from the street, they won't get here in time to save from hanging. I don't know what to say. If they see him hanging out there, they won't get here in time. Okay, so he gains consciousness and realizes that he can't breathe. So he swings himself around, somehow not choking himself out in the process, and wraps his legs around the sheet so he can take the pressure off of his neck so he can breathe again. I didn't realize bed sheets were this tough. Anyways, he uses the brick wall to get himself free. He gets back into the apartment, and be patient, Barbara. I'll have you free in a minute. They killed Hunky Henders. Now we'll never know who the crime boss really is. Oh, on the contrary, I know his name already. I'm going to bring him in. So he says, I'll send back the police. Stay here until I arrive. So he tells her to stay there, and she goes back to the editor. Hold open the front page. I've got news that will rip this town wide open. What's up, Babs? The Mad Hatter knows the identity of the big shot. He's going to arrest him any minute. Are you sure? I just left the Mad Hatter, and he told me so. So he lights another cigarette for you. You know that lighter won't work. You see, you call it a lighter this time. Okay. So he says that he's been thinking about taking a vacation, and he says, Babs, I want you to marry me. You're going to find out sooner or later I'm the crime boss. That's all I wanted to know. So you came. This is what I said. This is the most aggravating thing. He wants to know who the Mad Hatter is. He had the opportunity. Oh, but if he the Mad Hatter, it would have ruined the surprise. It's not that big of a surprise. I kind of saw this coming in the first place because you had two love interests over the same girl and you had to get rid of one of them. You gave yourself away. I suspected you, but I couldn't be sure until I heard you confess. And this was a trick, but you haven't caught me yet. So he throws the Mad Hatter across the room. Dude, you are not very good at this job. You've been knocked out twice and thrown across the room. Okay, so she actually decides to trip him on the way out, which gives Mad Hatter just enough time to grab him, and they roll down the stairs. A fierce battle ends. You can stop the work for a while. There's going to be a new story to replace the one you're putting in print. Wow, I'll say there is. So later in the office of the Daily Clarion, I can't face him. It's hard to believe he could be guilty of any wrongdoing. How did you know he was guilty? Now, I told him about Hender's letter. That's why I played a hunch. I knew you would go back to him with the story that I was about to arrest the crime boss. That made me... Yeah, he knew that she was going to go back, because he told her, stay here. But he knew that she wouldn't, so he used that to his advantage. He never suspected it was true, and it was doubly hard for him to doubt because he really loved me. But he wasn't above using you for his own ends. He wanted you to find out the Mad Hatter's real identity. Knowing the secret, he couldn't have ended my career. He had you unconscious just a few pages ago. He wanted to find out the Mad Hatter's real identity. Why didn't you take off the mask when he was lying there unconscious? You wanted to know his identity. I know, I'm getting really hot about this, and I know that I said that I enjoy these stories for the most part, but this is one of the most infuriating things. Your reveal was not that big, I wasn't shocked by it, and the motivation of wanting to know who the Mad Hatter is, and the fact that you didn't take his mask off, is the most ludicrous thing I've ever seen. Okay, so the police are hauling him away, he asks for a cigarette. This is the one time I can't do it for you. Guess I'll never do it again, but I'm glad that your gadget finally worked. So, yeah, the one final time the gadget works. They're promoting cigarettes a lot in this. So she says goodbye. So long, babes. Goodbye. Hatter, will you take me out somewhere where I can laugh if I want to or cry a little? Of course, queer, isn't it? I hate when I do that. That you should obey his orders. This time, this will be your first, and I don't know why he emphasized this, date with the Mad Hatter. The end. You had to emphasize that, didn't you? What about his secret identity? Isn't he dating her? Now she really is gonna date the Mad Hatter. Okay, I don't know if this was going to be designed to be a feature, but this is a 2-page story. Match your wits with the Mad Hatter. See if you can beat the Master Sleuth at his own game, where he seeks to solve the case of the scornful girl. So, he is on the deck of the ship talking to a friend of his, saying that he's set to be married, but his girl won't speak to him, and he thinks it's all because he found out about her brother, who he's sentenced to life for murder. So he says that he's gonna, he'll find out and talk to her. So he meets her at the masquerade ball as the Mad Hatter. Sorry, I don't care to talk about your friend or to see him. And as they're sitting, he said, that drink gave her away. This masquerade is nearly over. So as he manhandles her, he gets slapped. And then he reveals that it is, in fact, the twin brother dressed up as her. It's a twin brother. He must have escaped from prison, smuggled himself aboard, and taken his sister's place. Stop. Before you read further, see if you can guess how the Mad Hatter saw through the disguise. Take 30 seconds. And now, get ready for the explanation. The resemblance was perfect, except in one detail. When he drank, his thyroid cartilage, commonly known as the Adam's apple, was plainly visible. That proved he was a man, because women don't have Adam's apples. Actually, women do have Adam's apples. They're just smaller and less prominent. But, I mean, it can still work, I guess. Okay, he says, I guess the rest is easy. Your fiance's probably prisoner. He goes to the room and frees her. And then it says the next day, and this is really silly. I can hear wedding bells in the offing. My young friend will never know that it was the real Mad Hatter who played Cupid to his romance. No, you did not. You can hear wedding bells in the offing. You know why you can hear wedding bells? Because at the beginning of the story, he told you they were set to be married. That's how you know that you can hear wedding bells. Because they're already going to get married. And the Mad Hatter played Cupid. You did not play Cupid. Cupid brings two people who weren't in love together. They were already together. They were already in love. You did not play Cupid. You played rescuer. There's a big difference. They were already lovebirds. You just helped them find each other. I guess in a roundabout way, but you didn't make them fall in love. They were already in love. You weren't Cupid. You were just a savior. I hope you liked this. I hope you got a little bit out of this. I am going to do some more quality characters. I love doing obscure stuff like this because, I mean, I don't hear anybody else talking about this, so if it wasn't for me, how are you going to hear about it? Anyways, I love doing obscure stuff, so if you have anybody that you do want to see, go ahead and drop a line. But if you have anything that's really obscure, it'll definitely jump to the front of my list. And until next time, I'll be seeing you.